Morning, Drew.
Morning.
My name is Kevin Adcock.
Okay.
Welcome today. I know we spoke briefly in the waiting room out there, but I need to cover a few things before we really get started in earnest, okay?
Okay.
All right, so let's talk about a couple things. We talked about my credentials, talked about the building stuff, all that paperwork is filed, so we're fine with all that. What I need to talk to you more about in specific detail this morning before we get started is informed consent. If you would, please acknowledge the fact that we're recording this. We talked about that before, but if you wouldn't mind, give me a little wave there.
Hello.
I've got a form here coming up shortly that I'll give you to sign, recognizing officially that you're going to be recorded, both video and audio. Okay?
Okay.
More specifically, let's talk about that. That is for your protection and mine. All right? So we have an exact record of what we talked about. It's for my transcription purposes. It will be under lock and key in this office. No one else has access to this office, okay?
Okay.
Even if I were to want to take any of this information home, either the written transcript I take from the video or the video itself, I would come to you for a written consent to do that. That is not normal. That is almost never the case if anything leaves this office, okay?
Okay.
All right. What I don't want you to do is sort of clam up and sort of shut down because we're recording. Just forget about it. Act normal, speak normal, and pretend it's not even happening. And what I have is a fiduciary responsibility, so to speak, with you, a contract. You give me your openness, I give you my full faith, and I will give you your privacy, if you will.
Okay.
All right, so don't worry about that stuff. That's not a problem. All right, so we're being recorded, and more about the confidentiality. There are some exceptions to that, okay? I need to cover those specifically. One is if during our conversation something comes out that leads me to believe, in my professional opinion, you're a harm to yourself or others. Okay, in that case, we'll have to, and hopefully you'll agree with me at that time too, that we need to bring in potentially other authorities to kind of sort that out, all right?
Okay.
We don't want any harm coming to you or anybody else throughout our discussion or as a result of our discussions, okay?
Okay.
The other one is if something comes up that deals with the abuse or neglect of some protected folks in society, okay? And that includes children, minors, anybody elderly, can't really protect themselves, or the disabled, which sort of falls into that same category. So anyone that's vulnerable, if something comes up and it turns out that they're at risk, we'll have to involve some authorities on that as well.
Okay.
And again, hopefully you agree with me that we can sort of mitigate some of those risks to you and me and other people at that point. The next thing we have to talk about specifically is a court order or subpoena. In rare cases, things come up that require the law to request closed, sealed documents. Things that, like I said, are here under lock and key, accessed only to me. No third parties should be involved in that. But if a third party, in the form of a subpoena, would come in, I would have to make a judgment call, again, based on my professional opinion and the circumstances at hand, whether or not to release that information.
Okay.
What I would do is go to you first and say, look, here's what's happening. I'd like to get your written consent to do this. If you refuse that at that point, I would probably have to release it again, given the circumstances, against your will. I would even ask, because of the closed nature of this room and our discussions, that if you wanted to have access outside of our discussions to your own information, that you would give me that request in writing as well. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any questions getting started?
No, I don't.
Okay, well, let's talk a little bit before we get started. I know I'm doing a lot of the talking here, but believe me, it's all about you, and I want to get to that. But I want to kind of cover what the process will be, all right? When someone comes in, typically they're in a phase we might call like pre-contemplation. Okay, they're at odds with something. They're seeking answers to discrepancies in their lives or things that are causing them doubt or concern. That may be where you are now. So we'll go through a process of talking our way through that. There's a lot involved with that. And hopefully at some point we get to the next phase, which is what we would call contemplation. At that point, we're sort of tipping the balance from confusion to a better understanding of the situation that's at hand, any issues with that, and maybe start to uncover some typical or things that will help, I should say,
okay.
in helping you understand where to go from there. It's more about the risks of either changing what you're doing or the risks involved in not changing, but you have a better understanding overall of kind of the situation at hand.
Okay.
And then eventually we get to what we call the determination phase. That's where you're talking about clarifying your best course of action or courses of action, all right? And eventually that will lead you to, hopefully, action, all right?
Okay.
Okay, so before we get started, having discussed that, I'd like you to form or sign 2 forms.
Okay.
One is the recording acknowledgement, video and audio.
Okay.
And the next page, if you would, is the confidentiality agreement and the exceptions form. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
All right, so relax. Let's talk through some things. I know through our discussion that this is your first time in counseling, so I kind of want to ease our way into that, and you tell me, what brings you in here today?
So the main reason why I'm here today is because of my lack of relationship with my dad. When I was a kid, it was a very strong one, a very role model-like relationship. I looked up to him in many ways. He had a big impact on me as a kid. I think as I've grown older, I'm seeing him less as a modeling figure and more as a relationship that's become a disappointment. It's been really hard for me to understand, his lack of empathy and support in a lot of ways, with not only myself but also my relationship with my fiance. And it's just been extremely tough for me to understand kind of how it's gotten to that point. So.
Okay, so if I'm understanding you properly, you used to have a really pretty close relationship with your dad, and now that's sort of gone by the wayside, and you're longing for a deeper relationship with your dad, more like it used to be. Is that true?
Correct, yeah.
Okay. Well, you mentioned a fiance. Can we talk a little bit more about how is she involved with this?
We got together about 6 years ago. We've been dating for 6 years, and recently got engaged. Recently moved to Charleston, and she's involved. I think it's because I can see that she's hurt by it. She's hurt by the way he treats me, or lack thereof, really, of relationship, and I think it hurts her. To see my dad not really care or want to be involved in a relationship and want to know her, want to get to really know her, and I think she's worried and scared if he's really gonna take care of us in terms of if he's gonna care about our children, his grandchildren. How involved is he gonna be in that process of getting to know us and them? So. It's just it's a hard situation.
Okay. And I want you throughout this to feel safe to talk about anything you'd like to, and certainly comfortable. And if something does come up that you don't want to talk about, just let me know.
Okay, thank you.
To include fiance or other people that are involved. Can you tell me more about when this started?
I'd probably say before I went to right around when I went to college. I think he was really important in my life up to that point, and I wanted to get back to that. But I think when I went away to school, he kind of not forgot about me, but he had some other life stuff going on. He got divorced and got remarried to a woman who has 3 more kids. So I think he has a tough time of balancing his priorities in terms of, okay, now he's focused on his new wife and their life and their kids, and not really focusing on 2 kids to his first marriage, 2 kids to his second marriage. So it's been I think ever since then he's kind of fallen off the wayside in terms of caring about our relationship and keeping up with me, and it's kind of been all my responsibility to keep up with the relationship.
Okay, so you're 25, right?
Right.
Correct. You said this has been going on since college.
Right.
Since the end of college, did you say, or?
Probably about the start of it, the middle of it. So probably about 6-7 years.
Okay.
So.
All right, so we talked, or you talked a little bit about your dad being a role model, and I believe you used the word disappointment. Let's dig into that more a little bit. How? How is your dad a disappointment? How does it make you feel? What are the feelings you associate with that, please?
It's disappointment is frustration. It brings along some anxiety, feelings of anxiety and stress, because he likes to throw money at issues. You know, he sees that I think he knows there are issues with our relationship, and he just wants to buy you things to make you happy. And I don't want that. I want a father who wants to know what's going on, feels excited, feels proud of me, and I want to feel proud of him in our relationship. But I guess I'm disappointed in the person that he is, because he cheated on my mom and got with his second wife, and then he cheated on her to get with his third wife now. So I'm kind of at odds with kind of his morals and his beliefs and values, and they don't really transfer to mine. You know, I don't have the same beliefs and values. So I think that just the kind of the frustration with it all, like kind of seeing what he's done in his life and how he's treated the people that he's loved, it's caused some disappointment there for sure.
Okay. I believe you've used the word disappointment 3 different times. So I want to say I understand that. I think most people would. I mean, there are relationships that change over time, and sometimes those changes, we don't necessarily like, or certainly not authorize. We have to dig into why is this changing, and how do we cope with that. So I appreciate your honesty and openness. Tell me more about your thoughts. Like, how does this? You told me about your feelings. Now, how do you think about this? When is it happening? How does it come across? What's going on in your head? Not just the feelings part, but the actual thoughts, the thought processes.
Anytime I think about the relationship with my dad, negative thoughts come up. I think that there's some doubt in myself that maybe it's just me thinking that way. Maybe a neutral party would think that this is a normal relationship. It's fine. Quit acting like there's a problem. There's also negative thoughts in terms of just regret and just want for a better relationship. I just feel like for the past 6 or 7 years, there's been a lot of negativity in our relationship. A lot of things focused on payments of things, and I don't want it to be about money anymore. I just want a normal relationship with my dad. So I think that's just a lot of regret on my part of letting it get here and not taking more action. I think that's why I'm here, to kind of get to the point where I can have enough confidence and enough, just knowing enough information and getting enough help from you to kind of get to the point where I can take action in my own hands. So I'm tired of waiting for him, So.
Okay. One word I thought was interesting, you mentioned a couple times there, regret. So, Drew, please take me through a little bit more about, if you can, what regret means to you. If there's something you would have done differently, or something like that, what would that be? Let's dig a little deeper into that.
I think my biggest regret is, I think as a kid, and I guess I wish I knew more about who he was and kind of his values and beliefs and his actions, because I think I just focused more on just him as a role model because he was a really good athlete. Mm-hmm. And our relationship as a kid, when I was a kid, was focused on that. It was, Drew as an athlete, it was all focused on our interests, our common interests in sports. There wasn't really much else there. And my regret is not me, myself, not pursuing more, maybe learning more about him as a person, and the good things about him and the bad things about him, because I think it's the point now where most of the things I know about him have been positive in terms of like role model sports stuff, but negative in terms of role model in terms of like morality and all. I think that's my biggest regret is not talking to him about it sooner and kind of understanding why he does things that he does.
Okay, so we talked about his attributes. We talked about some ethics and morals. Tell me more about how that comes up. You say he was a role model as an athlete, in that sense, kind of the stereotypical American dad, playing baseball and that
Right.
sort of thing. But I mean, how other than the money part that you spoke of, how else is he not, in your opinion, supporting you to the point where you use the words like disappointment and that sort of thing?
I think it all boils around the relationship with my fiance. Ever since we got engaged or even just started dating, he's been nowhere a part of my life. It's kind of like, oh, he's fine now. He has a fiance. I'm just gonna which is fine. I mean, I understand. I'm an adult, but at the
Sure.
same time, I want him to be a part of our lives. I think that a lot of this is kind of coming up now with the wedding coming up in a couple of years. He just wants to pay for things, and I don't want him to just pay for things. I want him to be involved in our relationship. I want him to want to be at the wedding and because he wants to see me married. He wants to see our relationship at its best.
Sure.
I don't want him just to pay for things and say, oh, So I think the disappointment and the anxiety of it all has to do with my relationship with my fiance and wanting him to be a part of that because that's just what I want.
Okay. So I think I'm starting to get a sense of the disappointment. And correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like I'm picking up on there's sort of a void there where you want him to be, maybe if I throw a word in there, happy and more joyous and wanting to be more involved with your wedding and instead of just maybe wanting to throw a little bit of money at it and say, well, no, I'll pay for the cake or whatever. Is that the case? And if not, let's dig into that a little bit more. I mean, how can we get to a resolution on that sort of thing?
Yeah, I think that's correct. I think a lot of it has to do with the wedding, and I think overall just being involved with my relationship with my fiance. I think I'm old enough. I don't need a dad to just be focused solely on me. It's more than me now. It's I want him to make my fiance feel like she's a part of the family.
Sure.
I think just making her feel, she's gonna take his last name after she marries me. That's the plan. She's not gonna hyphenate. She's not gonna keep her own. She's gonna take his last name. So I feel like it's a big deal to make her feel comfortable with being a part of the family. And it's just been disappointing and frustrating on my end because he's been nowhere near our relationship. It's just all been, he's fine.
Okay, so maybe sort of disconnected from it,
Yeah.
from your wedding specifically. All right, so how does that, let's stick with that, how does that affect your behaviors in any way, if it does?
I would say there are times where I kind of hold things in, but I think when it comes to my dad, whenever that comes up, it makes me frustrated, it makes me angry. I can lash out at times. It can cause issues with my relationship with my fiance too. I think sometimes it puts me in a bad mood, makes me angry. It's hard to sleep at night sometimes because I am constantly thinking about it. It's kind of the unconscious thing at the back of my mind. It's caused some issues there. I wouldn't say it caused me any issues of eating or anything like that, but I think it's more like mood stuff. Sometimes I can act out physically, but obviously not to my fiance or anything. But stuff like that.
Okay, so let me ask you this, and I thank you again for coming in today. You mentioned holding things in. How hard was it for you to come in here today to share and sort of get to some of the root of these things? Is that difficult for you?
Yeah, it was. It's been hard. I have I have a support system of my mom, my fiance, obviously, and my sister. But I feel like it's finally time to kind of go to a neutral person to kind of get advice and what things to work on instead of the same old do this, do that, because it's not working.
Right.
So coming in now, it was a big step.
I agree. I was going to congratulate you on taking that big step because a lot of people don't, or if they do, they hold it in and sort of hold on to that anxiety for a lot longer, so it becomes a lot more problematic. So you've got 2 more years or so to your wedding.
Right.
So
October 2020.
So we got some time.
Right.
Hopefully it won't take that long, but we've got some time to sort through some of this stuff. And hopefully it'll work out for you. You mentioned, let me skip to this, because you mentioned some sleep behavior patterns. It's affecting your sleep a little bit. The eating portion. Anything else somatic-wise or health-wise? Is it affecting you in any sort of way? In some ways, people get headaches, nausea, things like that. Anything health-wise affecting?
I would say that it causes some stomach pain sometimes.
Okay.
I think I've been having those issues for a few years now, and my fiance seems to think that's the reason for that is due to this issue, because it kind of pops up whenever arguments or conversations with him, which aren't very often, but that's usually when they pop up. I think it might be related. She thinks so too.
Okay. Well, maybe. So anything debilitating or anything that's caused you to take a next step in that direction, seeking, a doctor's advice for any of these kind of issues?
No, I've kind of put it off. I've kind of thought that maybe therapy or counseling could help. It might go away. So I was going to try that first, and that might be the next step. So.
Okay. Good. And again, as usual, keep an open mind about these sorts of things. Tell me more about your social environment. Your friends, your support networks, your social life, family, things like that.
So I have my sister. So my mom and dad had my sister and I. And then he got divorced from my mom and got remarried to my stepmom, or previous stepmom now, I guess you could say. They had 2 kids. Those are my 2 half-brothers. I call my brothers, though. And then now the 3 new stepbrothers to his 3rd wife. So I have that. That's kind of my family dynamic. Friends, a lot of them are back home in Pennsylvania. I haven't made a lot of friends down here in South Carolina since moving here over the summer. So I think that might be a part of the issue. Just don't have a lot of friends to kind of vent to. I'm with my fiance a lot, so I would say my social environment's kind of small right now, especially after moving down here. Just because we're kind of in a transitional phase, me going back to school, her having a new job, we're kind of getting used to and settled into here. So.
Tell me more about how that feels. Are you able to consider, or would you be able to consider going out and finding avenues to make more friends that are local, so everyone's not 500-600 miles away in multiple states? Is that something you and your fiance or other friends would consider doing?
Yeah, we've talked about it. I think we've kind of made a pact to do better with that. I think after moving down here, it was kind of she was looking for a job, so she was kind of stressed out, and I was kind of stressed out with the wedding stuff and kind of have conversations with my dad. So I think that my first semester of school, the first couple of months, was kind of a stressful time. But now we're more open to kind of reaching out in the community and kind of just allowing some of these stresses to kind of dissipate a little bit.
Sure. Okay. Right. Let's talk about the problem onset. We talked about when it sort of started, but tell me more maybe about when this became a priority and why did you decide to come in now specifically, as opposed to, this stuff started whenever 5-6 years ago. Why come in now? Why is it a priority at this point in your life?
I think it's a priority now because the wedding, and I know I've talked about that a lot, but the wedding is now coming up. It's not until October 2020, but it's coming up quick. And I think a lot of the emotions with all that have kind of come to the forefront of him not being involved in my life the last couple of years and our relationship. So I think that's kind of the reason why I came in now. I kind of was talking to my mom, my sister, my fiance, and they basically said, what we're telling you isn't working. So this needs to be a priority where you maybe reach out to somebody who's not involved in the situation who can give you some advice. So that's the main reason why it's a priority now.
Okay. I'll skip a little bit ahead and then come back. But since we're on that topic, does speaking to mom or other brothers, sisters, that help? Tell me more about that. When you speak to them on the phone or in person, when that presents itself, is that helpful to you about this?
It's helpful, but I would say it's kind of run its course, and it's
Okay.
more of like a short-term help. It helps me at that time or in that short amount of time, but I think after a while, it kind of just goes back to how it is until the next conversation I have with him, or remembering things that upset me with him, kind of thing.
Right.
So I think that in terms of long-term help, I need some guidance with that.
Sure.
Short-term, I kind of have that with my support network, but kind of taking that next step is where I need to get to.
Okay. And that's good that you recognize that. That's a big deal. I mean, to be honest with you, a lot of people never get to that realization moment. They're like, hey, I need to break this pattern.
Right.
And speaking of patterns, are anything you notice that's sort of repetitive in nature, things that either make it better or make it worse, that bring up the bad feelings and thoughts, leading to bad behaviors or not positive behaviors, things like that, or anything you can think of that sort of leads to a moment?
I would say at nighttime I get kind of like I'm kind of wrapped in my thoughts sometimes and emotions of stuff that I don't really think about during the day, kind of like unwinding when I'm laying down to go to sleep or in the shower or something like that, or watching TV. So there are moments where I reach out to him over text message or call, and it's very short. He acts like he doesn't even care that I'm reaching out. So there are moments like that and I think that I cope with that in bad ways sometimes by eating junk food late at night. I don't drink or do drugs or anything like that, but I would say something like that could be a bad coping mechanism that can lead to just it's not positive. Nothing good comes out of that. I think it comes on because of the frustration and anger, reaching out and really getting no reciprocated care.
Right. So. Well, that may lead back to the stuff we talked about earlier with the headaches, maybe some stomach aches, and some of the physiological problems that sometimes we experience are a result of different things.
Right.
Not a direct result of what's bothering us, but like you said, eating junk food or
Right.
Drinking sodas, that sort of stuff could lead to follow-on things and sort of domino effect.
Right.
So, okay. If I heard you correctly, it sounds like with this nighttime description that it's kind of when there's quiet moments, when the day starts to settle, and now you've got time to really, you've put away all the things you have to do throughout the day maybe, and now it's like quiet time, and now something comes into your head, and during that sort of quiet, peaceful time. Is that kind of the way it's working for you?
Yeah. It's a lot. That's usually when I think about it. It's not whenever I'm at work or coaching baseball or whatever I'm doing with my fiance. It's always kind of my alone time, whenever I'm alone with my thoughts and I remember. Because I think it has to do with the fact that I kind of forget that he's my dad all the time because he's not a part of it. So there's always like that moment of like, I wonder what my dad's doing. So I like text him, hey, what are you doing? He's like, hey, nothing. And it's like, okay, bye. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
A lot of time it's that downtime.
Other than the downtime, anything that makes it worse?
I'd probably just say conversations with my fiance about the wedding because a lot of the time he wants to just pay for stuff, and I think that just a lot of this issue is just that I just want him just to want to be involved and want to talk to me, want to know how I'm doing, want me to know how he's doing.
Right.
It's a lot. I think he acts like I'm a stranger. He treats me like a stranger, and I think that's just it makes it worse. Any conversation I have with him, it never gets better. It just constantly gets worse. It's like just falling deeper and deeper into a pit, and I can't climb my way out. I think that's why I'm here.
Okay. Well, other than, and I hate that that's true for you, and I understand where you're coming from. Anything that makes it better. So you said there's some coping mechanisms you've used that aren't necessarily positive, junk food or whatever. Is there anything out there it's proven in times past when you've had a challenge Not necessarily this one, but something similar. Um, Anything that help in that regard that you can come up with and help come up with some different strategies and coping mechanisms moving forward?
I think that staying active always has helped
Okay.
because it kind of releases that stress and tension in the whole situation.
Yeah.
I think also too talking to my stepdad because he's kind of been around ever since, obviously since I've been around. He came into my life pretty early when I was 2 or 3. So I think talking to him and kind of understanding, seeing what a good father figure, how a good father figure treats his kids, and me being excited to talk to him and how he's doing, all that kind of stuff, and kind of sharing that bond with him. I don't really see it as a negative because I think it's a positive because it allows me to see, wow, it kind of makes me hopeful that one day I can kind of get back to that with my dad. So I think that kind of helps.
Good. That's good. So it sounds to me like physical activity helps alleviate, and speaking with your stepdad might be a good coping mechanism moving forward. That's good. Any other problems you can identify associated with this that we haven't already spoke about?
No, I don't think so. I think that pretty much covers it. I think it has to do with the wedding, and I think that's kind of brought up the emotions to the forefront now, things that I've kind of held back on, and I think that just having what I deem normal relationship with my dad is what I want. I don't want him to just throw money at the situation.
Okay.
I'm not asking for that. I'm asking for love and affection. Not anything overwhelming, though. I just want normal conversations about normal things.
Right, I understand. All right, I'm going to switch gears just slightly.
Okay.
I'm going to give you this. I've got a little box down here for you. You can take more space on the back if you need it, but I want you to take a moment and write down your goals and wishes. And I'd like to get 3 of those, if that's okay.
Okay.
All right? Here's a pen for you. Thanks, Drew.
Mm-hmm.
You're doing great, by the way.
Thank you.
Need water or anything like that?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so let's cover these here real quick. You right here, you want to reach a resolution with your father, and this is good, understanding that he may not change, at least to the way that you want him to. That's good. Number 2, fresh start with your dad and his now current wife. Is that what this means by wife?
Right.
His current wife.
Right.
Okay, and then to just be a better brother. I like that. Very kind. It's very cool. It says a lot about you. Which of these would you say is more important to you at this time?
At this time, I think the biggest thing is getting a fresh start with my dad and his wife. I think that the understanding that he may never change, I think that's something that I'm close to. But I think the biggest thing is having a fresh start. So I'm going to be 26. He's going to be 60, I believe. So I don't want to be at the point where I don't have any relationship with my dad if and when he passes away. I want to build something, at least if we're at ground zero, that's fine. I want to build something to get to a point where we're on a better footing, a better common ground as he gets older, because that's important to me.
Right.
So.
Sure, I understand that. So maybe turning to where we get the vector or the trajectory of your relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows where the end of that is or what the perfect state is, but at least in your mindset going in the right direction to get to a more state of normal or better for you. Okay, that's fantastic. Any time frame with any of these things that you can think of, other than we've got the wedding here in a couple of years. I know you don't want to wait that long, but is there a realistic time frame, and have you considered that in terms of breaking this down and then sort of making corrective actions on your part, or changes, not corrections?
I think that, like, for the first goal of kind of understanding that he may never change, kind of understanding his side of the story, kind of want that to be soon. I want that to really, really just be finalized for me soon. So like maybe like the next couple sessions, if we can work through that and kind of understand that. Getting on a better ground, I want that to be before the wedding. I want to be at a point by the wedding to just be better, just have some type of relationship, because I want that to be a celebration of my relationship with my fiance. I want him to get to know her. So like part of our relationship, me and my dad's relationship also needs to tie into like her being involved with it too. And being a better brother, I think that needs to be immediate. I think that's an issue that I need to do a better job. I think I take my frustrations and stress not out of my brothers, but I think my lack of communication with them, I think, is caused by my lack of communication with my dad. And I need to kind of separate those two things and do a better job of just being, not kind of following the direction of my dad. I want to be an actual role model, not just sports. I want to be an actual role model. I want to communicate with my brothers and show them that that's what's good and what's needed, because I don't know if they're getting that with my dad or not. So I want that to be immediate.
All right, so
soon.
Yeah, sure. I mean, we'd love all these things to disappear magically, right? Not realistic, but understanding that you have a goal, you're working towards it, and doing everything you can within your power to make that happen. That's good. It's really good to be specific and measurable and making things attainable and reasonable and timely and all that.
Right.
So really quickly, as soon as we can, with resolving ourselves with the dad situation, that's good. I think that's a reasonable goal. Starting fresh, the wedding or sooner. Okay, and those two things are related, and even the better, being a better sibling or brother, that goes along with you. These are all interwoven. You know what I mean? So if one improves, then the others, I think, improve by proxy. One last question for along this before we switch gears again. How will you know, do you think, when you don't have to come back and talk to me about this or talk to someone about this? How will you know? Do you know when you'll know?
I think I'll know whenever he understands and sees that it's an issue, and there's that emotional kind of, where we kind of let our emotions out if we ever do have a conversation, and kind of get an understanding of where each other are, and where I think just agreeing on a fresh start. I think that's when I'll be able to kind of understand that I've kind of making the next step, because that'll be the next step in our relationship, my dad and I, is just having that fresh start. I think that's that's when I'll know.
Okay. So when you feel that in your heart you've done all you can, and then that fresh start has happened for you. Okay, that's good. All right, so now I want to try something real quick. We call this an intervention.
Okay.
So I want you to spend a couple of minutes going through sort of call it a role play, if you will. I want to preface this by saying it's not a practice session for a real conversation. All right, I'm not trying to prep you to go have this conversation with your dad, but I want you to practice having a conversation with your dad. It's a fictitious one, because your dad's not here, right?
Right.
But we call this empty chair.
Okay.
So I want you to look over here at this chair, pretend your dad is sitting here with us today, and I want you to just talk to him. Talk to him from the heart, kind of get off your chest things that maybe you didn't feel like you could share with him before, that he wouldn't listen to, or hear you properly. Okay. So spend a couple minutes, if you would, talking to him. I'll take some notes with that, and then we'll kind of finish things up for the day.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Hey, Dad. It's been a while. Haven't talked or seen you or really had a normal adult conversation with you in a long time, if ever. And I guess my first question is, how do you think our relationship is right now? Do you see it as a good one? Do you see it as a healthy one that you are proud of? Or is it one that, like myself, do you feel it's one that's kind of just fallen apart and it's kind of non-existent at this point? I guess I would ask, do you care about me, or is it just kind of, he's my son. It feels like sometimes that you don't reach out for anything that doesn't involve just asking how school's going or asking about coaching baseball. I want to have more of a relationship than that. I want you to, I'm not asking you to come visit me all the time, but just get to know me as a person more, and I want to get to know you more. So I feel like I don't know enough about you, and I'm 25 years old, going on 26, and I feel like that's an issue. I love you, but I want you to show that you care. Just put forth effort, and I just want to be proud of our relationship because I'm proud of my relationship with Paul, who's my stepdad, and I think that's an issue. I think that's something that is a problem and that needs to be addressed.
Okay, very, very good. Thank you for doing that. Talk me through how maybe that helped you feel any differently or anything.
I think it kind of made me relieved. It kind of lifted something off my shoulders a little bit. I know It's like you said, it's not an actual conversation because obviously that didn't take into account his reactions or his emotions tied to it too. But I think it was like a venting kind of thing because I kind of was able to look at an empty chair and kind of act like he was in that chair. So I think it kind of lifted some stress, anxiety off my shoulders and made me feel good.
Okay, well, good. That's what it's for, and that's why we go through these sorts of things, these role plays, if you will, again, to kind of bring up some things we wouldn't normally think about if we're not thinking about the other person in the right way. Some of the things you brought up during that, asking your dad how he sees it, that's good to try to get his perspective. Okay, you mentioned this being a relationship that you're proud of from your dad's standpoint, getting his opinion on what does it actually mean, and do you care? That's very powerful, and I'm sure he does care. But getting to the heart of how you guys can both agree on how that manifests itself in that care and that pride. What I really heard was a yearning, and it goes all the way back to where we started a little while ago. There's still, I feel, a yearning for a better, deeper, more mature, not on Little League baseball level, but on a bigger level with your dad. You want that adult sort of relationship that you just haven't had yet. Okay. Anything else you want to add before we wrap up here today?
I think that was good. I think my problem is that I got my mom and my sister and my fiance kind of on my side only, so it's always been a biased perspective of things. My problem has been that I haven't really thought about his side of it. I think that just understanding his side of it is my number one goal, like I said, and kind of just having that conversation and just understanding that he may never change. So I think that's the big thing today that I've learned is kind of getting to know more about his side of the story and being okay with that, even if it's something I don't like.
Okay, so that's great, and I would call that. Thank you for that. I would call that, if I were to wrap that up with a bow, compassion. Understanding, empathy, trying to see something from someone else's perspective, and when you do that, when we are able to do that, we're better able to understand how we feel about something, and it just works. I'll tell you, I think this is not going to take as long as you might think it might. So if I'm wrapping up for today, we talked about a lot of stuff. Your siblings, obviously your dad, your fiance, a big piece of that, of this whole situation, the wedding, trigger moments. We talked about some good coping mechanisms. And I hope some of this stuff makes you feel better already. So next time what I'd like to do is pick up on where we're at following today's session. Okay? So we'll close for today, and we'll talk about setting up our next session for next time.
All right. Thank you, man.